There we go. Got our recording started and we'll be talking about the app today. So the first thing I'm going to do is share my screen because it's the easiest thing is to show visuals of what the app looks like. For everyone who's online now, can you please write in the chat box if you have or have not used the app yet, if you have it downloaded, and if you've used it. Where's my chat box on the screen? Yeah, Taylor, of course. Okay, Sandy, you said you've downloaded and used it. Madison. Okay, so for anyone who's logged on, if you can see this screen and you can see that on the bottom there's the QR code. If you've used QR codes before, you know what to do. If you haven't, for most phones, if you just turn on the camera, you turn on your camera and then you hold it up to the screen and it should pick up that code and show you a message on your screen. I'm sorry, it's my blurry screen, it's hard to see, but it gives you like a little pop-up that brings you to the internet. And that would bring you to the download store. So if you have an iPhone or Android, it would work with both. Then you're able to pick it up, scan that, and download. Let's see yeah, Becky, you've downloaded it, haven't used it yet. Okay, and Eileen, you downloaded it today. Okay, perfect. So that's great because what I'm gonna do with today is sharing some screenshots of different pages to get you familiar with what's in the app. And then you'll be able to do it on your phone at the same time so you can see a little bit how it works because the screenshots show you what it looks like, but until you get in and touch it on the app, you won't see how the mechanism works. We would have liked to do a screen mirroring kind of thing, but we don't have that technology set up. Okay. So let's see, is my slide gonna let me advance? Okay, there we go. Okay, so for today, we're gonna talk about the general information. I'll cover that along with Taylor as well. We'll talk about just the basics on what you need to know about the Cabrillo app. And then Taylor will cover the self-guided tour of the hilltop or upper monument. And then Madison, who is our science communications intern, she's been working on a tour of the coastal trail. So she will cover that. It's a work in progress, but she'll share what she's got so far. And then finally, we'll have some time for questions at the end. If you have any questions throughout about specifically what we're talking about, please put those in the chat. Is then either hopefully I'll see them, and if I don't, Carmen, let me know. Just say, oh, there's a question, or whoever's speaking, let us know so we can cover it. There's something else I was going to say, but no, I don't remember. Okay, so the NPS app, it's the new official app that's created by the National Park Service to make it a one-stop shop for all national parks in one convenient place. So before this, there are lots of different apps. It's like each park has its own separate app. Cabrillo has one for the flowers. Like each park has a different thing, so you have to download a different app. There's some general Park Service apps that are not run by the Park Service, so they're the non-official apps. So when you go to the App Store, it's important to use that QR code. The QR code is probably the easiest way, and then you make sure you're going to the right one. But just think of it like it's a virtual version of the park brochure. It's connected to an interactive map. It's got a lot of features like the audio tours. So it's really, really a great thing for our park. And it's really great for us all to have the information and know how it works so that when visitors come to the park, we can share this with them. So for example, we've started doing tours again, but most days of the week, we don't have guided tours, but they can go on the app and do the tour that way. It's something that's always available. So all the parks are in one app. So these are just a few screenshots. And if you take a look at those three, the Death Valley, Hawaii volcanoes, Channel Islands, you see they all have more or less the similar format with the picture on the top. They're going to have a map that's accessible. You see on the bottom, there's a home screen, there's a map screen they can click on that green bar on the bottom. And then more or less things are the same, that they list what to see, things to do. Some parks that have camping and things might say where to stay, whereas Cabrillo wouldn't have that category, self-guided tours. So when we built this, thanks to Taylor and Dan for doing a lot of the work on this, you build it into categories that are preset. So that's how the app, when you go from park to park, will be a little bit different, but more or less follow the same format. It's also great to have that map. You know how we have those maps, the brochures we hand out in the visitor center of all the parks. Well, here it's conveniently located in the app as well. So for this screenshot, what I did, so you can click this, the big green find a park button. You can go through and find a specific park, or here to get the map that you see on the right, I searched for all the parks in California. So it pops up, it populates all of that. So on the go, you can see what park is nearby. And then to requirements, you need a mobile device of some kind. So it can be a phone or it can be a tablet, and you have to have the right level operating system. If you've got questions about this, please come see the park rangers or send us an email to the CABR volunteers email, and we can help you out as well. So you get it from the App Store, either Android or Apple. The URLs, and like I said, that QR code is the easiest way, that one circled in red at the bottom. That's the easiest way to just make sure you get to the right one and not to the unofficial app. Okay, so now we're going to go a little bit more specific in how we use it. If you have GPS activated on your phone, it will automatically suggest parks that are nearby. You can also search. You can create a list of your favorites, or if you are a park ranger like us who always has Cabrillo up, then it will just pop up usually first. So you can see the screenshot on the right there from my phone. It just has that find a park button. So you click find a park. Yeah, for me, and I'm sure for all of us, once we start using it, Cabrillo will usually be pre-populated as the first suggestion. And then I've got some of those pages. So they pulls up that page I showed before. And one of the best features on this app that's really cool is that you can use it offline. So you see there how I circled that top button. So under each park, that top bar, it will say save park for offline use. And then you can, there's a little toggle button. If you can see, it's kind of like, it's kind of blends a little bit, it's white. So you touch that toggle button, and if you toggle it on, then it will, as long as your phone has space, of course, it will download all that content to your phone. So that's great in all the big parks that don't have any access. It's great at our park for something like the tide pools. Madison's tour, you wouldn't be able to do it without downloading the content since it's down in the tide pool area. Let's see if everyone following along. Yeah. And Taylor, I see you had a comment too.
Yeah, that was just thinking of reinforcing the version stuff and that, and how we were downloading the wrong app when we were trying it out. We found very quickly that the unofficial apps are easy to find and have bad information.
Okay, yeah, good to know. Okay. So you can download these parks for use, and then you know, when you're finished visiting, then people can take the content off their phones as well. There we go. And for the app, it has accessibility features built in. Information should all be readable by screen readers. Audio transcripts are available. There's also information for different things like the trails, about the physical accessibility. We would love feedback from anyone with experience using digital accessibility features. We know that it's built into the app, but could still use some feedback on how it works on the user side. So if that's something that anyone has knowledge or expertise in, please let us know. All right, we'll get a little bit more specific on Cabrillo. Our Cabrillo's park page, this is the screenshot there on the left, that's what it looks like. Hopefully most of you have been able to pull it up. And you see the categories we have. We have what to see, things to do, the self-guided tours, visitor centers, amenities, park calendar, park news, and then the passport stamp location. We're just going to run us through really quickly so we get a sense of what each of those look like. And at the bottom of those screens, so I'm showing you here, it's the same page twice, once the top of the page and once I scroll down. And if you see the big black box I circled on the bottom, there's basic information. So that's a really good one to have handy. You click on that and it's going to pull up, you can get our address, contact information, directions, all those sort of things. So I just did a screenshot there showing the basic information, and then I clicked on fees and passes. You can pull that up. I have to say also, it's really a great reference for us as well. Let's say you're working at the visitor center and you want to, let me check the price of the entrance while you're on the phone with someone. You could pull it up in the app as well. So it's a good reference for us to make sure we're up to date on everything. See, the first category listed there is what to see. So when you click on that, it leads you to this page. And under what to see, you've got all the different, not everything yet. We have some of the main places around the park, the whale overlook, the lighthouse, the statue, all of that. And then if you see on the top there, there's the little map. So and you can zoom on the map too. It's showing you where those locations are. So it'll help guide people in the park that they can figure out where they want to go. They click on one of these. Let's see if I did one. Yeah, so you can see the map bigger there. You click on, let's see if you want to go to the visitor center and view building, it will highlight that for you. And then when you click on it, it'll bring up information. So it'll have the visitor center picture, a little description, and then it'll have, if we've uploaded photos, there's the photo gallery too, and you can see all the information that way. And that would be the case then for each of those, that under what to see, each one of those has a different entry. Similarly, things to do, it's going to list out some of the things we have in the park. So far we have some of our most popular, so it's the hiking pages, junior ranger program, and then also wildlife watching. That's for us, that's whale watching. Well, each of those squares, if you can click on it, so you click on hiking, and then you get the different hiking trails. So you'd be able to click on each trail. So for example, if you clicked on Bayside Trail and you pop up and you get information, you can see how long it is, about how long it takes, difficulty, and it has that accessibility section that tells you about the change in grade and just a little bit more description about the trail itself. See, it's and then another one that's pretty useful is the Junior Ranger program. People can look up online when our Junior Ranger program is available, so they can earn their Junior Ranger badge, and they open it up. And that's pretty much, it's the same information that's on our website. And so it lists everything there. So currently we're available 11 to 3, but eventually when we open the desk more, then we'll change it in the app so everything stays updated. And then lastly, in the things to do category, you can click on wildlife watching and it brings you to whale watching at Cabrillo. So you click on whale watching and there's a whole bunch of information there about how the whales migrate, when to see them, and a nice picture of Amanda too, looking out over the ocean with some visitors. How's everybody doing? Following along? Yeah. And let us know too in the chat box if there's any questions coming up. But just a few more things on the general info about the Cabrillo app page. We have a park news section. So this is a great one also for us to be checking, because on there all the press releases will automatically populate. So for example, we just posted, or Elizabeth just put out this press release about open until sunset hours during summer weekends. So that starts on Friday, that we're starting to have the sunset hours. It's on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. So all of those big updates will be there in that park news section. Another great one to just see what's going on. Let's say you're coming into the park that day. And oh, let's see what else is going on in the park. You click on the park calendar tab, and it will bring up whatever is tours or things are scheduled. So currently, we've just gotten approval to get the tours, some tours restarted, and just on Saturdays. Hey, Carmen, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that Eileen did have a question about the bunker, and I think that might fit in well to the calendar because that typically, like the bunker days and whatnot, would be on an event listed on a calendar.
Yeah, Eileen, and yeah, for the open bunker days, that's currently not on the calendar because it's not open yet. But when it is, it will come up in the calendar when it's open. And there also is information about the bunker in those different places, so you can get information there, like a little written description. And in a few minutes, Taylor will describe. He put together a guided walking tour, and it's on that as well. But currently, what we have so far, starting last Saturday, we started doing the guided walk that volunteer Jack usually leads. So one at 11 and one at 1, the English language tours for up to 10 people. And then we also have an ASL, an American Sign Language tour with one of our interns, Lily. She's been leading those at 10 and at noon. So you can see if you were coming in this day on June 5th, you'd say, okay, these are the tours that are going on, you get a little sense of what's happening in the park that day. Oh, and then just to point out, I'm not going to click on these to show us, but there's also an amenities tab for each park that lists all the different things we have. The visitor centers, we only have the one, of course, but it will list the visitor center there as well. And then the passport stamp location. So that will guide people to know that we have a passport stamp and only at the visitor center. Let's see if my computer, there we go. Okay, so now we're gonna head to the category about the self-guided tours. So I'm gonna hand it over to Taylor to talk a little bit more. And Taylor, just let me know when you're ready and I can flip the slides for you.
I guess I can unmute myself now. Okay, that sounds good. So I guess to start off with, I'll do a little bit of background on the guided tours, just to kind of give you an idea of what they can do. Because like we're using a certain way here at Cabrillo, but there's other ways you can use them too. Like essentially, the guided tour feature lets you make kind of pick a start point and an end point, and that looks backwards on this. Oh well, anyway. You can choose physical stops along the way and create talking points and information points for each of those locations. You can do it as small of a space as you want or as big of a space as you want. So for like us here at Cabrillo, we used it. Our first one was the guided walking tour of the kind of upper monument area where you've got the visitor center and you kind of do a little loop and learn about the general things about the park as you walk past the lighthouse and whatnot. Whereas like Death Valley, for example, their first audio tour was a driving tour of the whole park, looking at places where they filmed Star Wars in the park. So there's a lot of variety in exactly how you can choose to do this. So just to kind of give you a little bit of backdrop on that. I think we can go to the next slide now. Go to my little index here, so what the slides are actually talking about. Yeah, we can go on to the hilltop tour slide now. And
next slide.
Yeah.
No, sorry, Taylor. It is a little bit hard to hear you.
Gotcha. Oh, gotcha.
I know you're.
Are you able to at all, or is it kind of like garbled and skipping around?
For me, it's like a little bit garbled, but I can hear you, but it is a little bit difficult. How about for others? Is that the same?
Okay. There's a lot of ambient noise in the feed booth here, so maybe I'll just try to talk really, really loud.
Yeah. Sorry, that scared me.
I'll stick closer. Out of curiosity, is this better if I do this? Or
yeah, it's better.
Making a difference. Okay,
no, it's
I guess
better.
I'll just hold the camera up pretty close. So anyways, just to kind of briefly recap what I was just saying about the general audio tour thing. Some parks like Death Valley where they did a car tour of like Star Wars filming locations that were filmed in the park. And then like here at Cabrillo, we have a much smaller space, so you can do walking tours too. So you've got a lot of flexibility in terms of how broad you can make your tour. And it's really up to the park and the people making the tours to whether or not you want to do a small focused thing or a big broad thing. It's just a matter of, you have to choose like a start point and end point and have physical stops along the way, basically, using the places in the park. So for the hilltop tour of Cabrillo, we basically made sort of a sampler tour to get things started. So it's kind of like our hilltop tours that we do, where you go along the park. And I guess since we're going through, might as well go on to the next slide for the breezeway. That works.
Sorry, my computer's a little slow. There we go.
No worries, mine probably slower. So. Yeah, so it's like for the breezeway stop, for example, we start the tour off there, just kind of introducing people to Cabrillo, going over logistics about things you should keep in mind when you're walking around the park, and when you click the tour, it'll also give you kind of an overview, kind of a brief description of what it's like, and also how long it's going to be. So when you do the tours, you also have you know right off the bat how long to expect it to last for. So if it's going to be a big drawn out 3-hour car caravan or a 30-40 minute walk around the top of the park, which is more we have here. So like the breezeway does kind of a little introduction to the area. It doesn't really delve into any content per se, because there's not a whole lot to talk about the breezeway beyond the traffic circle. And then as soon as you finish that point, when you pull this up in the app, I should add, there's a little basically a play button that you see there in the slide, and essentially just tap that and it'll go into an audio narration of the stop. And so like for that one, we had Regina, one of our fee collectors, kind of narrate the introduction. I can't remember if it's that little text icon in the top corner or not, but basically you can pull up the transcripts from the same section here too, or that may or may not be it, but there's a button there you can touch that'll pull up the transcript that gives you the whole written copy of that. And then you just hit the next button. And you can also go to you can pan back and forth in this on your own, so you can kind of do it at your own pace. If you want to go back and reread something you already covered, you can do that. And then the next slide, kind of between stops, they have there's the directions to the next stop, where you can do basically text-based directions on how to get to your next location. Which and again, in a big park, maybe drive down the freeway and turn left to this intersection and that kind of thing. But here it's just walk up the sidewalk to the lighthouse kind of stuff. And that brings us to our first stop, which is the Cabrillo statue. We want to go to the next slide. I wish we had a better microphone on this thing. I'm getting tired. So yeah, so like for our first stop is the Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo statue. Just to kind of give people an introduction to the park, because it's one, it's the closest thing to the starting point of the tour, but also it's what we're named after and all that. So it talks about the history of Cabrillo, and it elaborates a little bit on some of the controversy with him, just regarding some of his role in basically slave labor in Central America, that kind of stuff. And from there, we then go on to transition to the Bayside Trail, where it's more focused on the kind of natural landscape and the features that you find down there. And then if you want to go on to the next slide, from the Bayside Trail, we move on to the old Point Loma Lighthouse, where it kind of gives a little snapshot of life at the lighthouse. And each of these stops, we settle on making them about 3 to 5 minutes apiece, just because you factor in walking times, and even doing 4 to 5 minute talking points, it still takes a good 40 minutes to do the whole loop through everything. And also just if you kind of make these too long, people's attention spans tend to wane, even with best intentions. And then from there, you just kind of continue on up to the kelp forest and whale overlook loop, and you talk a bit about the whale migration and a little bit about the underwater wildlife we have here at Cabrillo, which kind of brings up the tide pools a little bit, as much as you can when you're looking over them from several hundred feet away and from about a mile away drive-wise. And then if we want to go on to the next stop on the next slide, we go on to the fire control station. So we actually do talk about the bunkers here a little bit. So the bunker you see up there, that's just kind of off that spur trail from the Whale Watch overlook, is the bunker for Battery Humphrey. And so talks, this one, it talks kind of about the fire control station bunkers in a more broad sense, using Humphreys as a kind of tangible one. It talked about a lot of the same stuff we would have talked about over Battery Ashburn's control bunker, which is the one up there by the military history exhibit. We just chose to leave that one off this tour, even though it's in some ways a better known one, where we did the demonstrations, just because it's not accessible, and this way the entire tour is on the accessible sidewalk path, so we have that consideration kind of baked in. Because it'd be kind of annoying to have most of the tour be accessible, and then there's like this one spot that goes down a dirt trail that may not be, wheelchair friendly and that kind of thing. Even though it's most things to probably get down there. And then after that, we kind of pull it back to the visitor center and kind of give them an overview of the city and kind of conclude, asking people just kind of reflect on their experience in the park and that sort of thing. And I think it kind of wraps up the current tours. That kind of brings us to the Coast Trail tour that Madison's been working on.
So Madison, what I'll do, I'll stop sharing this screen so you can share yours and share a little bit about the Coastal Trail tour in development. And this one, so everyone knows, it's not in the app yet, but it will be soon.
All right, sounds good. All right, well, hi everybody. I've been working on the Coastal Trail tour. So let me try to share my slides. All right, so these are going to be all of the tentative stops that we have, and I'll give you a little brief summary on what we're going to talk about on all of these stops. So it will start at the tide pool trailer. Can everybody see all the stops so far?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay, sounds good. So it'll start at the tide pool trailer, and we'll give a little introduction on just some of the basic bits of knowledge. So the only bathrooms accessible from this point. We'll talk about dogs only being allowed on this trail. The second stop will be at that final point of wheelchair accessibility. And we'll talk a little bit more on the whale migration. It'll be a little more brief than the monument. The upper monument tour. And then our third stop is going to be when you start heading towards the tide pools, and it'll talk about the kelp forest, and we'll discuss a little bit some of the organisms that are unique to that area. The fourth stop will be about the tide pools, and we'll give people information from up above the tide pools, and we also give them the invitation to go in and go tide pooling if the water level allows for it, obviously. And we re-talk about different organisms that might be special there, and we kind of give an overview of like, please don't try to take things off rocks, and nothing can go home with you while you're here. And we also invite people at the stop to utilize the volunteers that are available. So that might draw in more conversation between visitors and volunteers while they're down there. Our fifth stop, it's going to be in between the two staircases that are available on the Coastal Trail, and it'll discuss a little bit more with people just how special our chaparral biome is. And it talks about, like in this picture, not everything looks alive. So we talk about like drought deciduousness and why things aren't always blooming, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's dead. Our sixth stop will talk about the military disappearing light that's on the trail, and we'll go a little bit more into some of the military history that's available at the park. Our seventh stop will it'll be going down past the stairs in the disappearing lighthouse, where that really nice Shaw's agave patch is. And we'll discuss how important the plant is and how special. And we will also be talking about some of the pollinators that can be found in the park. And we also talk about the ones that can be found in San Diego County to give a little bit of a broader perspective. The eighth stop will be at the Spur Trail. And it's the same as the tide pools, where we give people an invitation to go down and explore themselves, but we also give a really good summary for up top. and give them an idea of what could be seen down there, even if they don't want to go all the way down that staircase. Our 9th stop is going to be just past the spur trail on the way to lot 2, where you get a really good view of all the coastal birds where they like to perch and hang out all the time. That was one of the questions I saw in the chat, was about bird watching. So we've started talking about that here in the gallery feature that's available. We're going to try to upload some really good infographics on the different birds you might see. And we try to give just a basic description of how to, try to listen for some of the birds, different species you might be able to find while you're in this lower area of the park. And our final stop is going to be at lot 2. And we've tried to utilize the idea that, some guests may not be able to find parking in the first lot. So this second lot will also give people an invitation to walk it backwards if they want to, or give them an idea again of just some of those basic rules. That way it's touched on both ends of the trail. All right, and I will stop sharing my screen and I'll hand that back to you guys.
Great, thanks, Madison.
Welcome.
Let me see, resharing. Okay. So with that, that's the end of our formal presentation. So I'm putting up the QR code again if anyone still needs it. We'll open it up to questions. If anyone has questions about the app or how to use in the park, feel free, you can write in the chat box, or you can also unmute and speak.
So Madison, one thing you may want to consider at stop 9 is you can also look down and see the seals and sea lions. There's a little window right there.
That is a really good piece of advice. I will write that down on my list. Thank you.
It's a great thing to point out to visitors as they're walking by, because they don't tend to look down there.
Perfect. Thank you.
And those seals sure blend in, huh?
I guess my question is, what's the difference really between what to see and things to do in terms of how you determine which is in one category and which is in the other?
Taylor, do you want to? Yeah, go ahead.
You go ahead and take that one, Julianne.
No, Taylor, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, so essentially, like the what to see is essentially like a list of like physical places and just kind of information about them. Whereas the things to do is more like it's more oriented around activity. Oh, sorry. Are you guys able to hear me?
Yeah, you cut out though.
Oh. Okay, sorry. Yeah, this computer is special. So the what to see is more like about specific places, and the places that when you click the place, basically, it'll have information about that location. Whereas things to do is more activities. So like if you're looking at like hikes or birding or whale watching or things of that sort. And there's definitely some cases where, like, I remember when I was working on it, some of them, like, I don't know, like, should I put this in this category or which? Because there's definitely some things that can go out one way or the other, just depending on what direction you want to take it or how you want to structure it. And there's a little bit, and this is all fairly new, so there's a little bit of kind of feeling out where it makes the most sense to put things to as a result of that.
So I'll add on too, it's just a little bit of how the app is built. Like if you just read each of those labels, you wouldn't necessarily know. But the way that the app is built, and this would be the same for all parks, once you get used to it a little bit, like Taylor said, the what to see, and I'm pulling it up again on the screen here as well. it's all those places. So what to see, it's like you're seeing places, things to do. Think of it more active. It's like, well, you can what you see in the park versus what you do in the park. It was just an easy way to think about it. When things to do, you can hike, you can do the junior ranger, you can do wildlife watching. And I'll add a note too as well that this isn't complete. This is our initial push to get information out. And then we're hoping to continue to populate it and add more categories.
I just
Does that help?
I'd like to add, please don't feel bad about redundancy.
That was my thought too, Sandy. It's okay to have the information in more than one place, the same type of information based on just the way people search things and that kind of stuff. It's okay to have a bit of duplication.
Yeah.
A stranger looking at our site, it's easy for us to sort things out. Well, it might be easy for us to sort things out, but for a stranger, you know, if you put up something that says wildlife watching, we already have a bird list. You can just publish the list. It doesn't even have to have pretty pictures. It could just be the names.
Like information that's already on our website and in flyers, things like that. Is that what you're referring to, Sandy?
Well, we actually, in the visitor center, there's actually a list of all the birds. It's just a paper list. It's in like 2 columns. And I don't know, there's 95 birds on it or something, maybe more than that. And it's a list like the Audubon Society uses when you're listing all the birds you've ever seen. People who are bird watchers, as opposed to the random tourist who'd like to see what that yellow bird was, are used to using that kind of list. And putting it in this kind of site is a good place for it. Because then you can refer people to the site rather than having to keep a Xerox copy of a list that, oh, by the way, is not exactly plumb on its page in the visitor center to hand out to people.
Sandy, are you talking about this bird sheet?
No, I'm talking about a list that's like 2 pages stapled together. It was in a set of file folders on the back side of the visitor center desk. I mean, I can take you to it and pull one out if there are any left.
Yeah, Sandy, I know which files you're mentioning. Yeah, that could definitely be built into wildlife watching. I think we just put the first things in there to get the push out, but that's a great suggestion of something to add.
And right. we can look at that. It's also, we have to make sure it can fit into this format that NPS has. So, but we can look at that and see.
Yeah, that's true too. As Dan mentioned, the way that things are organized of like the what to see, things to do, those aren't categories that we picked. That's what the NPS web developers, app developers, that's how they did it. And so we all have to follow that format. So.
Right, it's the what goes under them that is interesting. Because in some of the bigger parks, well, some of the different parks, I was on Natchez Trace looking at the one that we aren't using, which is places to stay. And it actually refers you to the different cities, Chamber of Commerce, hotel finding sites along the Natchez Trace, which would be like in ours, things to stay, places to stay. Although we don't have camping, we could put the list or the link to the, I don't know, San Diego Chamber of Commerce to search for places to stay. Because then you just, you just make your way through the web to find those other things.
That was on the website previously. I don't believe it is anymore.
Right. So, you know, the where to stay there in Channel Islands. Well, you're probably not staying in Channel Islands. You're probably staying in Ventura, but I haven't looked at their website or their site, their app, to find out if that's what they're talking about, or if they're just talking about the places on the islands.
Okay, great, thanks. It's good suggestions.
And kind of step back from it here too, and go back to the bird list. I'm not talking very well. So like we actually have a fair bit of flexibility in terms of how we can actually fill them out. Like there's certain structural things that affect like how we are, like how we have to organize like the things to do, like for the bird watching, for example. But there's still a fair bit of flexibility. So for example, transcribing like the entire bird list should be fine. And I think that my original thought for how we could do that would be something along the lines of, you know, just kind of a brief description of here's how you burden the park, here's the things you might need, and here's a list. You know, there's a lot of ways you can take it. We have discussions about that. But it's like something like that is very, very doable as long as we're not going over the word cap, which I think is for most of the content sections about 5,000 words a section or something like that. So something like that's very doable. And we do a fair bit of flexibility in terms of how we do it. There are some formatting restrictions, like I found out the hard way, that apparently tables don't play well in the app. I tried to set up that on one of the other sections. They referenced like an animal list, I think on the Bayside Trail place. And I tried to, you know, make it a nice table so it was neatly formatted with, you know, animal categories. And then the app just completely butchered it. It was completely illegible. So for stuff like that, we just might have to use like headers and just big lists below that without any columns, which is, you know, not as clean, but it's still very doable.
Especially for wildlife, I think that it's a place that makes a lot of sense to have photos that might describe them, or at least, you know, have a basic view of what they might look like.
I don't have a suggestion, but I just want to comment how much I've really enjoyed the app.
That's awesome, Susie. What parts of the app have you
Okay,
played
so
with so far?
I've actually played with, last week I learned all about the Badlands National Park in South Dakota. I've looked at the Volcano National Park in Hawaii, but I want to thank Taylor and Dan for putting together the one for Cabrillo. I took the upper monument tour, the self-guided tour, and as much time as I've spent on the upper monument, I've learned a lot. I learned stuff I didn't know about the fire thing, the batteries, and you know, and that was part of the self-guided tour. So I've really enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the Cabrillo part, and I've also really enjoyed the app itself, because each week I choose a different park and I learn about it. I do the self-guided tour, I learn about our points of interest, I learn about the history, and I think it's fascinating because they're places that I'm not going to ever be able to get to, but I can learn about them. So I really appreciate that app.
I agree, Susie. I mean, I've just started using it, but right now I'm in the what to see at Cabrillo. And I love the information that's in there. I mean, if I want to find out the basic stuff about the lighthouse, which I have learned, but you forget, you know, it's like having your own little cheat sheet. And inevitably visitors will ask you, you know, if you're down in the tide pools, they ask you about the lighthouse. If you've got this at the ready, you can, you know, bring up information and be able to answer questions better. And I think it'd be a wonderful thing to encourage new volunteers, well, and veteran volunteers to go ahead and do the tours, go through the app, and, you know, learn what you can. And it's a great reminder. It's kind of like a mini e-binder. It's a great little Cliff's Notes version of an e-binder.
You're right.
Yeah, that's a great point, Becky. It'll be part of our onboarding for new volunteers?
I'd like to say something. This is Eileen.
Go ahead, Eileen.
Okay. This is the first I've played with it because I'm a little hesitant with new technology. And I appreciate all the information. Someone's done a lot of work. But under several things, you have food listed. And then when you tap on it, it shows a visitor center, which to me sort of gives the illusion that there is a food source there. But nowhere does it mention that the only food is the machines outside on the breezeway. Because a frequent question I have found is people say, is there any food or drinks someplace?
Eileen, if you drill down, it does list under the food that there are vending machines only.
But it is,
If you click on food, okay.
but it's quite a ways down. You've got to, because at first glance, it takes you to the visitor center. It says
Right.
food and then it says visitor center. So I'm like Eileen, I assume it's like there, we don't serve food in the visitor center was my first thought. And so that may be something you'd have to clarify up top rather than having people drill down, because people don't often.
Well, I still don't find it, even though I scroll down all the way. So
If you click on the more info or read more, whatever.
Yeah.
On the amenities, is that where you are?
well, I'm not sure what category. Visitor Center and View Building. I'm not sure. I have to go back to see.
Well, the bottom line is it's always something we can take out of that list if it turns out that it's confusing.
Yeah, Dan, I bet there was no vending machine category. That's for amenity.
That's correct. But under the food, it does say vending, food, drink, vending machine, self-service.
I believe you. I just still can't find it. Thank you. I'll keep scrolling.
Well, and then the other thing, Julianne, you may want to think about is if Eileen's having trouble finding it, visitors may be having trouble. So it may be one we
I
just
can't find it either. Yeah, for me too. I don't see the vending machine part. So I think Eileen, that's good.
I'm sorry, but-
No, might pull it. Okay, Taylor.
Something we could potentially do too, and maybe to sidestep this issue, is because we can create new places for things. Like, for example, we want to, right now I think the visitor center is kind of logged as kind of the visitor center district, but maybe you want to clarify that people are under easy impressions. Like, we made a place for the breezeway and the traffic circle already, so maybe we could just reassign like the food to that, for example. And so that way people don't see food associated with the visitor center, but they do see it associated with the breezeway. And right now the breezeway is not really listed as any like major attraction, but that might be a way of maybe partitioning it out. So that's one of the ways we have some flexibility in being able to kind of like partition places up into different places people can use. There's a few things we can't control, like with the tags, for example, like the amenities. We just kind of check boxes in the back end of the app, and whenever we check, just kind of like it's thrown wherever the app decides they should go in whatever order it thinks they should go in. So there's certain things that are a little bit outside our control, but we can sometimes find ways to kind of work around it to make it a little bit more intuitive for people. And this is all fairly easy to change in the grand scheme of things, as long as we kind of are checking our work as we're going along. So if there's any changes you see that you think might be helpful, I'd say definitely feel free to keep up with suggestions and stuff, because we can. It's not super easy to fiddle with, but it's not actually that hard to fiddle with either.
Yeah, so I'll second what Taylor said. As you notice things, you're like, oh, is this right? Or this is difficult for me to find. Send your comments, let us know in person, but especially send your comments to the CABR volunteers box, because then I'll have it written down. And yeah, and then we can take a look and have Dan and Taylor take a look at the back end of the app and see what we can do.
I did finally find food, but it doesn't mention where it's located. And I'm sorry, Taylor, you speak so fast, I don't catch everything you say. Thank you, though.
Yeah, he said though that basically there's ways that the app has limitations. So we're not able to put things maybe exactly as we would want to, but it still is flexible. So we can make some changes. So for all our volunteers who are using the app, just keep letting us know when things are a little bit difficult to use, because then on the staff side, we'll look at it and look at the back end and see what we can do. Okay, so we're getting close to our end time. Do we have any final suggestions, feedback? Let us know, or else, of course, you can let us know going forward.
Yeah, and really quickly, just a reminder, you guys don't have to email CABR volunteers with your COVID-19 self-checks. All you need to do is continue to conduct those yourselves. And if there is any risk or anything, if any answers were yes, just make sure to let us know that you won't be coming in. We ask that you stay home.
Thanks, Carmen. All right, thanks everyone for joining us. As you keep using the app, please let us know any of your thoughts and comments, especially to send notes to the CABR volunteers. It'd be greatly appreciated.
Good, yes.
All right, thanks everyone. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.